Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're joining us today, because we're going to look at something that is just truly fascinating. When most of us think of the 1611 King James Version, we're usually picturing classic literature, dusty old books, or specific religious traditions. But what if I told you that to linguistic nerds and scholars, it's actually a highly precise tool? It is literally a linguistic decoder ring for ancient texts. So today, we're looking at the 1611 KJV not as some relic or literary artifact, but as an absolute masterpiece of data preservation, one that can totally change how you read historical documents.
You see, the big problem we face today is that modern English has actually lost a bunch of really important grammatical distinctions. Over the centuries, our language has sort of smoothed over those hyper-precise details that used to exist in early modern English. So think of modern English kind of like a filter. Sure, it makes things incredibly easy to read, but it often filters out the original, complex meanings of those ancient Hebrew and Greek manuscripts. We basically end up losing the exact mechanics of what those original authors were trying to say.
Okay, let's dive into this. To unlock this text as raw, unfiltered data, we've got 5 specific keys on our agenda today. The translation philosophy, transparency through italics, the power of pronouns, decoding verb tenses, and finally, the interpretive weight.
Starting off with number 1, the translation philosophy, or raw data versus processed.
To really grasp this, we've got to look at how these translators approached their monumental task way back in the early 17th century. They used this strict foundational philosophy called formal equivalence. Basically, this means their main goal was translating word for word. They were actively trying to match the exact sentence structures, the specific cultural idioms, and all that complex grammar of the original Hebrew and Greek, getting it as closely as humanly possible. Their goal? Leave the text raw and unpolished. They didn't want to do the interpreting for you, they just wanted to hand you the exact structural blueprints.
Think of formal equivalence like being handed a pile of raw, unpolished bricks. It's the data straight from the source. Now compare that to the thought-for-thought approach that you'll see in modern translations like the NIV or NLT. That approach is more like a smooth wave. In modern versions, translators decide what they think a verse means, process the data for you, and rewrite it into easy-to-digest modern English. But that 1611 approach, it preserves the exact grammatical mechanics, even if it sounds, a little clunky or strange to our modern ears.
Moving right along to our second key, transparency through italics, filling in the blanks. This brings us to a pioneering system they used for dealing with inevitable grammar gaps, and honestly, it is absolute genius. Any translation requires adding a few words just to make the sentence function, right? Well, the 1611 system uses italics to give you total transparency. If a word was added purely for English grammar, boom, it's italicized. They wanted you to know exactly which words were not in the original Hebrew or Greek texts. Because they did this, you aren't left guessing. You can weigh the literal, original text against those interpretive additions all by yourself. That is just an incredible level of data transparency.
Next up, number 3, the power of pronouns. Thee versus ye.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, well, I know what you're probably thinking. These old-sounding words are just fancy, archaic poetry, right? Actually, no. They are a hyper-precise grammatical tool. T-words, like thou, thee, and thy, always, and I literally mean always, meant singular. One single person. U-words, on the other hand, like ye, you, and your, those always meant plural. A group of people. Modern English completely hides this precision by just using the word you for absolutely everything.
Let's look at a real-world example in Luke chapter 22 to see the dramatic stakes here. Jesus is speaking to Peter, and a modern translation reads, "Satan asked to sift you, I prayed for you." Now reading that, it sounds like a one-on-one attack solely targeting Peter, right? But check out how the 1611 KJV reads, "Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not."
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why this decoder ring matters. Because of the plural Y word, you, we know Satan was actually targeting all the disciples. The threat was against the whole group. But because of the singular T word, thee, we know Jesus specifically prayed for Peter individually to lead them through that massive group attack. The modern translation completely flattens this dynamic, but the 1611 grammar, it reveals the precise original historical action.
All right, let's move to our next key, number 4. Decoding KJV verb tenses. Suffixes with purpose.
So, you constantly run into these suffixes like est and eth,
And no, adding eth to the end of a word doesn't just make you sound like you're at a Renaissance fair. These are actually direct maps to the ancient languages. The est suffix indicates a singular action, while the eth provides a literal window into a plural or continuous, ongoing action. They are telling you exactly how the verb is behaving in the original Greek or Hebrew text.
Take the word seek, for example. When modern translations tell us that a man seeks something, it generally reads as a one-time event, or maybe just a simple statement of fact. But when the KJV says a man seeketh, it means he keeps on seeking. It indicates an ongoing, habitual action, a continuous lifestyle. That is a massively rich flavor of ongoing action that gets entirely lost when modern translations just simplify the whole thing to the word seeks.
Which brings us to our final takeaway, Section 5, the interpretive weight. Who decides? Because the 1611 KJV utilizes formal equivalents, uses italics for total transparency, keeps those singular and plural pronouns perfectly distinct, and preserves exact verb tenses, it doesn't smooth things over. It leaves the data raw. It preserves the original theological nuances, the ancient wordplays, and all those multi-layered meanings that just get flattened out by modern processors. In short, it preserves the genius of the original authors.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Do you prefer having your reading material interpreted for you, or do you want the raw data so the interpretive weight falls entirely on you? This isn't just about reading Old English. It's about having the tools to see ancient texts clearly and putting the thrill of discovery right back in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.